Hi everyone, my name is Licia He. I am a generative artist who is in love with plotters. And welcome to my course titled Painting with Plotters. This is a course where I talk about the making of generative plotter painting, which is a type of visual art that is created with code and robot. And in this very first module of the course, I'm going to cover 4 major topics. First, who am I and how did I get started with generative plotter paintings? And the second, why do I want to make this course? Then we're going to go over the plans for the course, and also I want to share some of the resources related to this course so that you can get started. Okay, let me start by introducing myself and tell you how I got started with plotter paintings. I grew up loving art and technology. In the middle of my grad school training, I met the love of my life, which is a plotter. What is a plotter, you might be asking? A plotter is a computer-controlled robot that can move something in at least 3 different directions. It is a technology that has been around for a long time, and it is also a technology that plays an important role in the history of computer art. I met my very first high-precision plotter in 2019 when I was interning at Google. A lab within Google happened to have a plotter sitting around, and they let me play with it. Since that magical moment, my plotters and I have been living happily together. I instantly fell for plotters because plotters can seamlessly combine my passion for both programming and physical art making. Before meeting my very first plotter, I was already making web-based generative art. What is generative art, you might ask? Generative art is a genre of art that is made with systems. These systems don't necessarily have to be made by code, but many of them actually are. During the first part of my grad school, making generative art was my procrastination activity. But after discovering this combination of generative art and plotter paintings, I basically couldn't think about anything else. I woke up thinking about plotters, and during the day I think about plotters. When I went to bed, I still think about plotters. So it was really obvious to me at that time that I have to do something with this. I have to change my career plan so that I can make more generative plotter paintings. That's pretty much what I did. I started making more art, writing more code, buying more plotters, and then eventually switched the trajectory of my career completely. In the past 5 years or so, we made thousands of paintings together, exhibited worldwide, and shared the joy of plotter art with many. There are, of course, many more stories that I would like to share about my generative plotter journey, but let's save that for the future. Let's talk about why I decided to make this course. In the past 5 years, I got so many questions about my painting practice, especially how. So how do you make your image? How do you make your plotter paint? How do you make your art? I normally start with some sketch and a concept. Then I built a system, basically a software, and this software would generate images that describe my concept or look similar to my sketch. If I am happy about the image, then my system will translate the image into plotter operating instructions. I send the instructions to the plotter and let it render the image with physical materials such as ink, watercolor, and acrylic. As I gradually develop my art practice in this area, I'm getting more and more questions, which made me think, maybe there's enough interest in here and more people want to enjoy the magic of plotter painting. So I should do something about it. Maybe I should open source the core structure of my system. Let's call it the Painting with Plotters library. So my initial plan was just to put this library out there, and whoever needs it can use it. Sounds like a good plan? Well, the only issue is I am missing half of the picture. Even if you have the exact same script that I have, I think we will find it really challenging to paint the same picture because you don't have the same physical setup as I have in my studio. Which is why I really spend the time to reflect on my practice and then realize that the practice of making generative plotter painting actually requires efforts from multiple sides, especially from the digital side and the physical side. So in addition to figuring out what to draw and how to actually write software that makes the instruction for the robot, I also have to spend a lot of time and effort thinking about how do I place all of those paint trays, what type of paper should I use, how do I modify my brush so that it works on the plotters. All of that material knowledge is actually pretty important for this practice of generative plotter paintings, which is why as I work on organizing my library, I became increasingly certain that just open sourcing this library wouldn't be enough. I would also have to have videos, I would have to have writings, and I have to have code, everything working together in order to get someone started in making generative plotter paintings. Which is why I just eventually decided that I am going to make a course. It has been about a year since I decided to make this course, and the more I think about it, the more I feel like I have so much to talk about in this topic, and I just kind of let the syllabus grow longer, bigger, and now it has become such a giant project that it makes it, frankly, a little bit difficult to get started. But we have to start somewhere, right? So let's dive into the content that I have planned for this course, but just keep in mind that some of the details might change in the future. The Painting with Plotter course is an in-depth presentation of my research and practice in the plotter painting area. Through this course, I want to share information about the making of plotter painting and hopefully making this information useful for people who are interested in this area and for people who are interested in making art with robot. It is a technical course that introduces the making of generative plotter paintings. The course will go over 4 major aspects, including first, the preparation of the machines. Second, the selection of material. Third, the making of the design. And lastly, the machine operation. I want to give you as much information as possible, especially on the technical side. So this course will contain lots of information about the Python-based library that I have built for my practice. And yes, we will actually go over the library and talk about why and how it was designed this way. A natural question is, if I don't know how to program, can I still take this course? The answer is yes, of course. Technically, you actually don't have to program in order to make plotter paintings. It is perfectly fine to develop a plotter painting practice using vector editing software such as Inkscape or Adobe Illustrator. In one of the future modules, I will actually show you how to do that. But because my practice really focuses on code-based generative plotter paintings, a huge part of this course will be about coding and about rule-based generative systems. A related question to that would be, if I don't program in Python, I program in such as JavaScript, can I still take this course? Again, the answer is yes. In fact, I think it is so much more beneficial for you to implement your own version of your system rather than completely adopting mine. Because, my system is tuned for my practice, it works perfect for me. Whereas when you're using it for your own plotter, your own setup, it requires some level of modification. Next, let's talk about a couple of resources and important notes for this course. The most important resource for this course is the course website. So the course website is available on my host, isopanda.com, and this would be the most centralized index page for this entire course. Everything I produce, including the videos, the articles, the code, everything will be linked and organized on this one website. All the code used in this course will be uploaded to this GitHub repository with a MIT license, meaning that you can use it in pretty much whatever way that you prefer. Just a few more things about this course. The most important thing when operating machine is safety. Whatever that I'm showing you in the video, in the course, is a practice that works for me, works for my machine and my setup. It does not mean that you can expect everything to go smoothly in the first try. Plotters are known to be kind of a safe type of robot, and I have never injured myself or my robots, my plotters, during my practice, but I cannot guarantee that for you. And I want to warn you that if you use your tools in a wrong way, you could totally damage your machine or you can injure yourself. So it is your priority and your responsibility to always pay attention and to stay safe. One more note I want to make is about the nature of this course. This course is definitely my passion project. It's a one-woman production, and I would like to keep it that way. I want to make it as open as possible, as accessible as possible, also as free as possible. Throughout this course, you might see me talking about different brands, different machines, different materials, and I'm not sponsored by any of the brand or platforms to say anything, so this is completely my course, my own production. With those housekeeping things out of the picture, now let's talk about the course release schedule. At this moment, I am planning to release one video per week, and some videos might take slightly longer, and we have total 14 modules, right? Some of the modules might have multiple videos, and let's just say roughly we're looking at a 6-month release schedule. So for the next 6 months, I'm excited to see you almost every single week. Throughout this course, I also expect to get a lot more questions from you. Asking questions is such an important part of the learning process, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. There are several ways to send your questions to me. First, you can directly comment on the video. I'll make sure I go through them. And the second, you can reach me through direct messages on Instagram and X. And then, third method, if you have very specific questions about the code aspect, feel free to go to GitHub and raise a question over there. And lastly, I will share this Google form where you can submit your questions, and I'll go through them hopefully frequently. to make this Q&A process a bit more beneficial for the whole community, I am going to read, digest, organize some of those questions and post them onto the course website. So if you go to the course website, there is this Q&A page where you can go through and to see what kind of questions has been asked and has been answered. So before I conclude this video, I want to say a giant thank you for those of you who have been waiting so patiently. The production of this course is definitely taking a lot longer than I have imagined, but I'm hoping that it is worth the wait. Well, thanks for joining me, and I hope we'll have a fantastic time together. Next time, we are going to jump into the material side, talk about the machine, materials, and tools that you will need in order to make generative plotter paintings. Okay, well, happy plotting. I'll see you next time.